seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Hey, welcome to Donnybrook. We're going to start with Get Well Soon, Whitey Herzog. We love you. You got to be around for the World Series this year because we're going. Sorry, Bill, wherever you are. Once again, welcome to Donnybrook. Hey, our panelists tonight are Wendy, Wiese, media veteran, Joe Holleman from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Ray Hartmann from KTRS. He'll be on a little bit later tonight. Check him out. And Sarah Fenske from St. Louis Public Radio. How you doing tonight? How's everybody doing tonight? All right. Well, a lot of news coming out of St. Louis County and specifically the county executive's office. Sam Page had a lot to say. He wants to put police on the metro, 18 of them. I think we're all good with that. Crime Commission, and also apparently a little difference of opinion between the mayor of the city of St. Louis, Lyda Crewson, and the police chief, John Belmar, basically about 42 police officers. She says she requested them. No one else seems to know when or why. Personally, I do not want St. Louis County to lend or give or have any part of 42 police officers going into the city of St. Louis. Joe, you agree, right?
No, I do not.
Oh,
no, I do not. I think, the time has come when you talk about, and we're going to touch on some of these things, crime commissions and where to put police on MetroLink and to lend 42 police officers. If there's anything that needs to be addressed immediately out of those all great better together county-city consolidation plans, something needs to be done about crime. And I don't mean the old when politicians say something needs to be done, let's farm more commissions. The city needs the 42 officers. The city needs the 18 officers on the MetroLink. And I don't think we can look at it as, there's a line where I think it becomes dangerous when we draw that line between city and county. There is a crime problem in St. Louis. If you want to define that as the city, great. But nobody visiting St. Louis says, as long as I stay outside of the city on this line, everybody's getting painted with that same, you're an unsafe city. And that's the image that's come out. And I think they need to put all the differences aside between city and county and address the crime problem. And if there are 42 officers that the county has, which I believe the county has said in the past they don't have a problem recruiting officers, then yes, they need to be loaned, borrowed, whatever it is. It's necessary. It's for the public safety. And I think they need to put aside all the posturing and who's in control of what and just get it done.
Normally, I think I'm pretty sensitive when it comes to the history of a person. We had Tony Messenger on KTRS this morning, and he was talking about the history of John Belmar and, the sleeping police officers and the cameras being covered up to protect the police officers. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, it doesn't really matter because we are in real trouble. And the longer we wait, the worse the problem is going to become. And it's, as you said, Joe, it's going to be impossible to shake this new reputation that we have as Dodge City 2019.
It's interesting. The city is having right now a real problem recruiting as many officers as they need and retaining those officers. And I think in the long run, this is something the city needs to tackle. They need to figure out, why can't they hire people? I don't think it's as simple as they're not paying enough money. Why can't they retain these people? It's not as simple as they can get better jobs elsewhere. There's some real problems with that department. But in the meantime, it's kind of scary to think, okay, we don't have enough officers to do what needs to be done here. It seems like maybe getting a loan from St. Louis County, not the worst way to go.
Well, the glaring part of this story to me was that the mayor of St. Louis and the county police chief were effectively, one of them's lying. I mean, one of them's going to call at each other basically. I mean, this isn't something that happened 10 years ago. I certainly do not think that the county executive today should be bound by any deal that Steve Stenger might have or
God
made
forbid,
or didn't make.
yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think that has any relevance at all. So I don't blame Sam Page with respect to that. I'm not even taking a side. I agree. I don't have a problem at all with the city and county collaborating, because one of the only areas that we do collaborate now, and I've made this point before, is in policing.
Yep.
They do 100% of the time collaborate on the major case squad. They collaborate 100% of the time on Regis. They collaborate on 911. So there is collaboration now. That doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to merge the two departments, but the idea that they could support each other or lend one, that doesn't bother me.
But what's really fascinating is that it took this long. You would think if I am the mayor of a major metropolitan area and at a meeting with the county, with all of these officials, I actually requested 42 police officers and they haven't materialized. Why didn't I make a phone call? Why didn't I have Steve Conway make a phone call? That, to me, that's the really bizarre part of this.
Okay, I got an answer for you. From where apparently or allegedly this conversation took place, suddenly, Steve Stenger was under federal indictment and the whole Better Together thing fell apart. And Joe, you were mentioning, working together and all that. The number one problem out in my neck of the woods was basically that merging of police departments. So thus, I don't think it's...
You're saying people didn't want to see that happen.
They did not want to see that
Right.
happen. And I agree with that. And so thus, I'm not protecting necessarily, my own municipality police force, but the whole idea of why are we lending police officers to the city of St. Louis? Why don't you recruit police officers? Okay, and I know it's pay, and it might be.
It's not just pay, but they're trying. They're trying to. In the meantime, do you want the region to just fall apart?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying, Alvin? Let's
Alvin,
protect Kirkwood.
I think we need to move the lines a little bit. We're allowed to color inside of it in a crisis, right?
And I was on the side of people, and would continue to be, who were trying to defend the existence of the Kirkwood Police Department or the existence of the Creve Coeur Police or any of those. There's a material difference between defending your own police department's right to exist and have its own autonomy and sharing services. So, for example, if Kirkwood and Webster wanted to loan each other police officers, be fine with me. And if the city and county want to somehow collaborate, that's fine. Cooperation is different than we agreed very much on Better Together's idea of just destroying all police departments other than one.
Okay, quick question for the panel. Do you volunteer for this, or could you just be assigned to be one of those 42 police officers? Joe, you're in favor of it. You're the police chief.
I think you would go through and ask for volunteers first. I mean, certainly. But yeah, no. If 42 officers are what's needed, or maybe the county, I don't know, counters and says, okay, we've got 35 people who said, yeah, I'll go in and work the city. Then send those 35. I mean, the time has come where forget who's in charge of this and who's with that and who's got their department. There's a problem. Let's fix it. Period.
Okay.
So work it out.
All right, I hear you, and I'd like to be a problem fixer. That one steps over the line. Maybe the city-county line.
See, I think all of these. I think all of these homicides. That's what's over the line here, and I understand what you're saying, but we've reached critical mass, and something's got to be done.
Okay. All right. Also, out of Sam Page's office, he wants to clean up City Hall, or what do we call it in Clayton? The municipal county
center.
County government
All
center.
right. And one of the wide-ranging ethics bill, one of which is like zero tolerance for not turning in corruption. Now, if the guy next to you gets a couple of baseball tickets, do you now call the office and say, like, hey, he got a couple of baseball tickets? I think that's a little over the line. How about you, Sarah?
I would actually argue with that. I think this is a really good policy that Dr. Sam Page has put into place here, that he did by executive order. I read just a fascinating story in the Call newspaper where they had Hal Goldsmith, who was the lead prosecutor on the Stenger prosecution. He was talking about how no one came forward to blow the whistle on Stenger. It wasn't like the FBI was getting tips from people inside the county government. And we know now, thanks to the excellent reporting of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, we know that what was going on was terrible. I mean, people were being pressured to do things that were outright illegal, and some of them did talk to reporters. Good for them for doing that. But the fact that nobody blew the whistle on this, I think having an order in place that says if you know about something, even if you're not the person doing wrong, if you don't deal with it, you're going to be in trouble for this, and you could lose your job. I think that's an excellent start.
Did he have anything to offer in terms of what it was that Stenger did that was, nobody observed the same rules of decorum when it came to Charlie Dooley. So what was it about Stenger that was so terrifying, or that, you know, put the fear of God into people? That's what I don't understand.
In terms of why nobody did come
Right.
forward to the
I
FBI.
mean-
It's interesting. I think, I mean, my read, just from having read, again, the coverage of the Post-Dispatch, is that Stenger staffed the place with a lot of his cronies, and they were getting really fat paychecks, and they had a lot of reason to look the other way. And, you know, they thought when the time came that the prosecutors wouldn't come for them. Now, a number of them are doing some time,
Yeah.
or at least are on probation.
Right.
So that didn't work out. But I think this is it's a good thing to have in place, to say it's not enough to just keep your nose clean. You also have to make sure that you don't know about your colleagues doing anything bad either.
I agree with I agree with you. I agree with the policy. I disagree with one line that was stated, which is pay for play is dead in St. Louis County.
Well, but at least we're trying. I think the line is we're trying to kill it.
No,
We're
that's not
trying
what the
at
line
least to
was.
kill it.
The line was pay for play is dead, and I would argue that pay for play is part of our political system in all jurisdictions, pretty much, in the city, the county, St. Charles, and I don't think that, you know, I think there's been sort of understandably to some extent, sort of a kumbaya thing. I will say one thing that would be an interesting step would be to have nonpartisan elections in the city and county. That would be a bigger step that might be more substantive, although it doesn't contradict. I agree with the policy that he did is good, that you can't, it's not enough not to commit a crime. If you see one, you need to come forward. I have no issue with that at all. I think that they ought to be thinking about nonpartisan county elections.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I don't think you could, I mean, nobody can have a good position in saying I'm opposed to ethics legislation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, of course I'm for that. And, and milk for children and clean water, clean air, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it's only as good as the people who are in the office. And politicians have, you sweep out the crooks, drain the swamp, play for play is dead. It's all meaningless, and then you get in there, and then it becomes, the thing is the current administration has assistants. Old administrations had cronies, I applaud
2020
but
hindsight,
I applaud the ethics. But the thing is then somebody else gets in there. Everybody campaigns for good, open, clean government, and they put in rules. But you're still going to have to say is that the guy sitting across from you or the lady sitting across from you, you think she might have gotten something. So you're going to right away call the boss and rat her out. It's probably not going to happen.
Productivity will come to a screeching halt. I think that Dr. Page, he is reminding me more and more of almost like Elliot Ness. I mean, he is truly out to do good. He seems like the only thing missing is the white hat, and maybe he keeps it in his office.
I kind of push back. He's a politician. Okay, he's fine.
but
he's clean. I mean, he's certainly better than the last guy. That's great. But the fact is that the idea that Steve Stenger committed crimes and got convicted for him, is doing his time. Fine. He did not create the system of people giving money.
No, he just exploited it to the nth degree.
Obviously, and he paid it fine. But the point is the idea that whether it's corporate, labor unions, or whatever, who have something to do with getting someone elected, getting something in return for that is very much alive in the city and county.
Okay.
And it's what it is,
No, I got
which
you.
doesn't
But-
argue
but-
against doing ethics
All right,
reforms.
but what I'm saying is that right now everybody's focused on the highest employees in St. Louis County, corrupt, turning their head. But I work for the sanitation department, and my boss is taking his car home every night and drove it to Wisconsin last weekend or something like that.
Yeah, I want you to turn that in,
That's what I'm
Alvin.
saying, and then I'll
Yeah.
lose my job. That guy, they'll tell him, don't use the car to go to
But
Wisconsin
that's
anymore.
the point of this policy is under this policy, your employer's going to lose their job. And if he doesn't,
Oh.
then you've got a good lawsuit. I think, it's impossible to stamp out corruption. You guys are absolutely right about that. So I think the question for any good leader in a political system is not how do we stop it, but it's how do we respond once it's already happened. And the deal is we've got to have people taking it seriously. And when they blow the whistle, the whistleblowers have to be protected. And having a policy
All right,
in place
I'm just
helps
saying
with
that if I'm one of those low ladies
the
and gentlemen
pole,
on
yeah.
the totem pole, I got that same memo that there's zero tolerance.
Right.
I'm
And you're
like, nah,
saying,
I don't know. Right.
Hear no evil, see no
Yeah,
evil,
exactly.
speak
They've
no
also
evil.
got an anonymous hotline now because they're hoping to give that low man on the totem pole the ability to rat out his boss. And I actually like that.
Yeah, right.
Nobody's
See, I
really
hope it's not
anonymous.
just for the boss taking a car home at night.
Try thinking your cell phone's anonymous.
But yeah, well,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, you're
Hey, there's
Vladimir
some
Putin's going to know about it.
right. The computer's anonymous too. All right, you mentioned lawsuits. Okay, Luther Hall, allegedly beaten up by his fellow police officers. He's filed a lawsuit. Meanwhile, there's a federal lawsuit basically saying anybody who was down there and got kettled is part of this class action lawsuit, and a number of police officers, more than 100, are named on this. I don't think that's fair. I honestly just feel like, you've now alleged, indicted police officers who may have not done anything wrong. I got a problem with it. How about you, Ray?
I don't know enough about this suit. I mean, it just came out. I don't know if it's legit or not. I know so Chicago, I will say, if you're talking about the whole kettling question, I am anti-kettling. I think it's a terrible practice. Whether it's been declared unconstitutional or not officially, I think it should never happen. I mean, and in the case of not only did Mr. Hall get beaten, but 10 journalists were in there, 6 of whom I think have claimed that they were either beaten or tear gassed. And the very concept of it sort of presumes that the peaceful assembly and protest is somehow a crime in and of itself, and that the police just get to determine, we're done, you're done, we'll kettle a bunch of people. I think it is a really heinous practice to round up a bunch of people, some of whom might not even been there to protest, such as a journalist or just bystanders. I just think it's a terrible practice that should never happen.
There were so many innocent people who got caught up in that kettle. I interviewed some high school kids who went to that protest. They had never been to a protest before, and they happened to peel away at the exact right moment, or they would have been stuck in it. So many people trying to comply with orders, trying to do what the cops were telling them to do, and they were literally given no chance to comply. They were just rounded up and arrested. So I think this is the perfect use of a class action lawsuit, because you've got this entire class of people who suffered because of the fact someone took their rights away. Why not handle it as one big piece of litigation? I think it makes a lot of sense.
I think it's a sloppy way to handle it. I think is what does you said is that who was guilty, who was innocent. So you have 300 on this side and 200
Right.
on this side, and it bases on the part that I guess what I'm doing is that it seems to be, from what I have read and the allegations, that indeed police overstepped their bounds in some instances. How many? I don't know. What the class action tends to say is that everybody on one side did wrong to every other person on the other side,
Right.
and they're all innocent. And that's simply not the case.
Well-
So I think it's a I'll be curious as to how it plays out, but I think it is a very broad stroke way of handling a problem that probably needs a bit more precision.
It's interesting to me because essentially you're kettling the police officers. Honestly, you really are.
That's the poetic justice.
Well, it's
to that.
well,
no, it's okay to do wrong.
It's
It
okay.
depends on what
It's
side you're on.
exactly,
Justice to that.
exactly.
It's
In
all- it's not
terms
meant to be
of
wrong.
Luther Hall and his lawsuit, with Mayor Lyda Crewson, somebody might have to translate that for me, because she allegedly is alleged to have said to him in an elevator, "Oh, they hurt your pretty face," and this was after he was treated. Somehow his attorneys are making the case that means that she knew about the plans to kettle. She knew that he was undercover. That to me seems like a reach, that the mayor would know exactly which officers were undercover that night, or am I missing something?
One thing is, how did her security people happen to give him a ride home, which was part of the story?
Right.
I mean, so if she didn't know anything about it, how did they just sort of randomly picked him to give him
he
a
was
ride home?
seriously
No, but I'm
injured.
saying her
Right.
security people, and she apparently has this different memory with Mr. Hall about what she said in the elevator, just as she does with Mr. Belmar, a completely different, very different police figure. And so that's two that she's at odds with. And so I think there's a lot of places where she would be in much hotter water politically for having said that, if she did, than she is in St. Louis. I think it's a very legitimate question going forward. And I have to tell you, I think this entire thing is a huge embarrassment to St. Louis.
Absolutely.
I can't figure, I assume the ACLU's lawsuit, I think, is still pending. And if my understanding is correct, 3 of the officers in some of these cases, the officers just stay around.
Well,
They
some
don't-
got
nothing happens.
promoted in the Jason
One
Moore
got
case.
promoted.
Right.
And I mean, I think we really need to come to grips with what happened.
And it is, like you say, it is a civil. That one is civil.
Right.
It's not like a criminal case. It's civil, but the city mayor is named in a civil lawsuit that does not involve property or taxes. It involves a police officer getting beat in the street and everything else. And it's kind of like, wait, I'm with you, Ray. Hold it. You're the mayor. What's going on?
Well, and Wendy, you're saying, I mean, I do kind of love your analogy about how they're kettling the police by naming all of them. But in fairness to the people pursuing this litigation, there's going to be due process in this lawsuit. They will get a chance to respond. And for the people who were out there and got kettled that night, including Mike Falk, a very good journalist who worked at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, he was out there and attempting to comply with orders, and they put their boot on his back and pepper sprayed his face. There was no due process in that. And that's what is giving St. Louis the black eye right now.
All right. Okay, meanwhile, out in Frontenac, St. Louis County Library wants to expand. They don't want it to. Big building. Ray had a great column in Riverfront Times this week about it. Ray, are the good people of Frontenac being bullied?
I know the question is this about Frontenac, and I had some fun with the fact that it's in Frontenac, and I'm not normally Frontenac's champion particularly. But yes, I mean, and in particular, this is a county issue. It's a county library board that I think at the best, first of all, the county library is a great institution. Everybody likes it. And the county library, I think, board had all the best of intentions, but they clearly made a horrendous set of decisions with Prop L money they got a bunch of money from the taxpayers. Their mandate was to expand facilities, and people make good judgments and bad judgments. I think they made a colossally bad judgment. The Post-Dispatch did some great journalism in February exposing the fact that they spent $6.4 million for $1.9 million worth of real estate, and now they've come up with by some new math, as some appraisers come forward and decided, oh no, it's really worth $6.4 million, to which I say sell, if that's the case. And in Frontenac's defense, whether Frontenac's wealthy or not, it should not have an 82,000 square foot facility that includes bookmobile servicing, which is a very industrial use, in a residential area. Understand, the county library, like school districts, has the right to override local zoning unless public safety is involved. A lot of people don't realize that. That's fine, but usually you don't flaunt it and be arrogant about it. And I think it's a countywide issue. The simple solution, in my opinion, is for Sam Page to appoint 5 new library commissioners because their terms are expired, not fire them, and let a fresh set of eyes look at it and see what they think.
Putting aside my love of library districts, which I do, I'm also just glad to see Ray speaking out against the reach of big government coming on and imposing things on the poor people of Frontenac. I think really what this is a justice for Frontenac issue. What it is, from covering it, I agree with the point about the appraisals. That's some funny stuff. But the bottom line is Frontenac doesn't want it. It's a NIMBY. They don't want it in their backyard. Nobody wants anything in their backyard but their backyard. So the idea that bookmobiles might be in Frontenac and that's not appropriate, that's what every neighborhood says that gets these.
It's zoned residential, no community. I don't care whether it's Frontenac, I don't care if it's Wellston, I don't care if it's Creve Coeur, I don't care where it is, Oakville, no community with a 82,000 square foot building housing 180 employees. I had it at 175, it's 180 employees at on a 2-lane road. Clayton and Spady are both, it's a 2-lane unexpandable road that is going to be just crushed with traffic. It's not about whose community is, it's a terrible idea.
All right. Okay. Not a terrible idea.
Okay.
Gloria is now old school. We won the Stanley Cup. Gloria, everybody's happy. The Blues have decided that they no longer want that. Anybody ready to move on? Or
that's their prerogative. If they want a new song, I mean, I think we'll all go stark raving bonkers if we have to listen to Gloria for another season.
So you like Bobby Brown's "It's My Prerogative," huh?
No, that's not the song I was thinking
That's
of,
a
but that's
great,
actually pretty good.
March to
What's
Battle
wrong
song.
with
blues-
"We Are the Champions" by
The
Queen?
blues.
No, that's yeah.
That's kind of cliche.
okay.
But the blues,
we are.
sorry, the blues are absolutely right in the sense that I remember the Cardinals. I want to say was it '82 where it was celebrated.
Celebrate.
That's kind of special, and it stays with the year you won.
Right.
Gloria belonged with the year we won the cup. It'll be played forever on anything to do with it, and they absolutely need to move on because there is a chance that they won't win again.
For another 50 years.
Well, and once-
they need to move on to a new song.
As usual, I agree with Ray Hartmann yet again. I do believe that song needs to retire with each year, and I would say that about any team and any song. It becomes identified. So, in light of last week, when I realized that the topic everybody cared about were support monkeys that we talked about, if you remember.
Gosh, yes.
I did some research into
He's
this.
bitter.
All right.
And
He
I
got
think
such a
I
beating.
have.
He's bitter. He's
I
ready.
think no. I was
bitter.
Did you get a support monkey?
I'm ready. I want to hear this song.
What's the song?
1982 was Laura Branigan did Gloria.
Right.
Okay.
So I went back to 1982, and I found a song that everybody knows, everybody loves, everybody would sing along. It also mentions a woman's name. Come On, Eileen.
All right. Just because?
Because Gloria had nothing to do with winning a game. I mean, it wasn't like it was we were the champions. It just happened to be. It organically rose up. So now you have a song also from 1982, also mentions a woman that people will go nuts singing "Come On, Eileen." At the
Certainly investigative journalism.
Miss Fenske and I.
Well, I read the
are
whole
both-
story, Ray. It's
Maybe it's time for a
That
man
would be-
to get a song.
All right.
Yeah,
I don't think
What was the song?
What are your guys' songs?
I don't have a song.
You don't
All right,
have
we got to
one.
go.
Okay.
All right. Hey, thank you guys so much for watching. Send letters to Donnybrook, care of KETC, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Send a text to, email to letters@ketc.org or a text to hashtag DonnybrookSTL. And please support all of our podcast partners that you see on your screen right now. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Sarah, so much. And it'll be Ray and Wendy on your turn. Thank you for watching tonight. And I promise you, it's going to cool off outside. Have a great night.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Welcome back to the show we now call Wendy Explains What We Really Meant.
That will
That's the
never,
song.
ever happen. I would need a UN translator to pull that one off. But we had a lively show, and we thank you for watching because we hear something about a, athletic event going on somewhere.
Oh, there's nothing.
There's
Now
nothing.
let's go to Ed from Chesterfield.
Hi, Ed.
Good evening. Thank you for taking my
Sure.
call. I really enjoy the show. I watch it every week.
Thank you.
And my view is I'm vehemently opposed to St. Louis County Police being loaned or whatever to St. Louis City. I don't think the St. Louis County Police are overstaffed, so I think there's probably enough work for them to do in St. Louis County. And then secondly, they were hired to patrol in St. Louis County, which is a much lower crime rate area than St. Louis City, and I don't think that it's fair to them to put them in a high crime rate area. If they wanted that kind of a job, then they would probably have applied for the job in St. Louis City, not in St. Louis County.
Okay, thank you for the call.
He makes some. He makes
Well,
some good
I
points.
think I think police officers would not agree with the second half of that. I think the county police are able and capable and willing to, and I don't think it's that material a difference in terms of their job, but I do think that different people can have their opinion about whether it's a good use of the resources.
Yep. But he made his
Thank you for calling.
case very well. Thank you, Ed, for the phone call, and thank you for watching. Let's go to Tom in St. Louis. Hi, Tom. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Hey, good evening. Like your show, too. Talk to you sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, the crime goes on in St. Louis. The problem in the suburbs is that the crime's bleeding over from the city into the suburbs. So I think it should be up to the particular municipality whether or not they want to get involved and help. But St. Louis needs to settle their problems. As for Lida Cruson, God bless her. She's inherited a mess, and I think the woman truly has done some good and is trying. I've had some dealings with her, and she's been very fair, and her office has tried to assist me in these matters. Mm-hmm. But, the crime in St. Louis, it goes along racial lines. We have racial problems that we're not addressing in St. Louis. And there are many black people who are fine, upstanding citizens. There are many white people who are fine, upstanding citizens. Well, Black Lives Matter. If Black Lives Matter, I'll ask some of the black people, why are you killing one another?
Okay.
We're not going. No, don't interrupt. We're not.
Okay, we thank you for the phone call, Tom, and let's move to the Twitterverse. We have 3 tweets waiting for us.
From Sister Sarah 23, county and city police should work together. A new Better Together plan in the works?
We shall see. At Mary B. Wilt, I work for a very large worldwide company, and we have to attest every year that we will report any episode of fraud or malfeasance that we are aware of in our company. And I would do that. Our company takes this very seriously. Thank you, at Mary B.
And from Emery Cox 4, Frontenac and Ray Hartmann are afraid of check notes, bookmobiles?
Not exactly.
I think the bookmobiles do a great service, but thank you for the tweet, and send them to hashtag Donnybrook STL. Jackie from Kirkwood. Hello, Jackie.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. I'm calling in regards to the county library as well. I'm a senior. I used to live in Sunset Hills, and I went to the Tesson Ferry library, and I don't know what happened to the new one they built across from Grant's Farm, but everybody I know at my age, 65 and plus, does not like it. They don't like the facilities. They don't like how to get in, and of course there was all kinds of work on the road. So I think I am looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in Frontenac. If you've been a library book lover, you'll always be a library book lover. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Jackie.
it.
Yeah, that would be one of the most, this will mean nothing to you, Ray, but for any woman who enjoys Yankee candles, a library book, like a library book Yankee candle, would be pretty cool. That would be a great item. Well, thank you, Jackie.
And
She's
it's
excited
interesting
about
to hear about the feelings, the library in South County.
The South County, yeah.
As I said,
I haven't been there.
have nothing but respect for the library system in general, but this is a tough issue, so we'll see how it plays out.
And if you're just joining us, be sure to check out Ray's column in the Riverfront Times on the library.
Who's next?
Let's go to Evan in Sunset Hills. Speaking of Sunset Hills. Hi, Evan.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, Ray.
doing?
I wanted to comment on the library issue as well. When the library board closed the Tesson Ferry Library on Lindbergh, it was a perfectly viable library. Ingress and egress was great, centrally located, plenty of space, and they made up some story that there was a sinkhole threatening the building, when in fact it turned out that Fresh Time wanted to go in there and build. So they built this facility on Gravois, which routes you through subdivisions and construction areas. The roads have been torn up for 2 years. The library is nowhere near as useful as it was before. And to my knowledge, nobody who goes there likes going there, myself included. So trusting the library board to do anything properly and above board is questionable at best. I don't like what they're doing in Frontenac, and the proof is in what they did in South County.
Okay. Thank you for the feedback. Well, that's the second one from South County, and I really do not. I do think the library board, I think with the best of intentions, made a bad judgment. And sometimes, God, I'm no one to talk about making bad judgments, and sometimes you don't know when to
Pull out,
hold up and when to fold up. But
I think what you said earlier was really important, though. Just a new set of eyes, you know, to have a new board impaneled and to have a new set of eyes. But are we too far into this, Ray?
Well, we're going to find out. I think it's going to. From my sense is Sam Page, Dr. Page, is not willing to act on this.
Yep.
And so, you know, and people can decide for themselves why. I mean, it's a tough issue to inherit coming in.
Sure.
But I do think that expired terms, in this case, that they should find replacements. And that's not akin to firing anybody. It's just
just let their term lapse. Yeah.
And I wish he would do that, but we'll see what happens. Let's go to Mike in Lime. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Good evening.
Evening.
It was hard for me to believe that no one on the panel either knew or had the fortitude to come forward why they can't hire police officers in the city. And the reason's clear. We got an incompetent mayor, and we have an incompetent prosecuting attorney who, through their actions, have castrated the city police. And the policemen, you know, they reacted like I guess any normal person would. They look the other way now. It doesn't pay to arrest people. People who commit murder in the city and don't even get prosecuted.
That's really not fair. That's not true. That is just not true. I mean, that's just not true. I mean, you can criticize Kim Gardner if you want, and that's fine, and a lot of people do. And there's you know, plenty of room for disagreement. But that's just not, we keep repeating this. I'm sorry, Mike, but that's just not true. They just went to jury trial last week and got a murder one conviction. I mean, it's just not true. I mean, if you want to...
Well, how many police officers have you talked to?
I've talked to several. I would say a lot of police officers dislike Kim Gardner. There's no question about that, and the job she's doing, I should say. But I also know a lot of people in the community that feel she's doing a good job. And she's an elective official. The people of the city are going to have an opportunity effectively August in the primary, to decide if they want to return her or not. That's our system. And though if she's, you know, as I said last week, I would not bet against her winning. But I don't think it's helpful to say things. I mean, again, it's your turn. I don't want to. But it's just not true to say that murders don't get prosecuted.
But she has had an antagonistic relationship with the police department since before she took office.
But that doesn't necessarily make her wrong. It just means she's at odds.
Doesn't necessarily make her right.
Correct.
Either. So,
right. That's what we'll see. And it's sort of our point of view. But we do appreciate the call, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Let's go to Greg, and he is calling from Baldwin. Hi, Greg. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Thank you very much. You were talking about the Metrolink and the St. Louis City and County Police and trying to have enough people there. Metrolink does have security guards, but apparently they don't ride the whole system. I'm not quite sure what parts they do or not. But St. Louis County pays for half of the expenses of the Metrolink. St. Louis City and St. Clair County pay the balance. So they should have a lot of say, in my opinion, in who's, you know, their staff to the police I think it's very important to use it. It's a big expense we've incurred, and it's not really being used. That's it. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. And by the way, Metrolink did a study, which I defended, and I still defend, that urged Metrolink's security people to do a couple of things. One is to be friendly and to welcome passengers, and the other is to take tickets on the train so that people pay and get kicked off the train if they don't pay. They also suggested they stop the security officers stop playing police officer, take away their guns and their drug-sniffing dogs, and let police do their job on the thing. And I'm glad that Sam Page is stepping up and others to. We need greater police presence on the platforms, and Metrolink Security do a better job of collecting tickets.
Yeah, I'm a lot less concerned about whether they smile than.
Well, but that's part of it. Yeah.
I mean, I understand that's part of it, but just keep the public safe. That's all. I think most of the riding public really cares about. And I did appreciate what Dr. Page said about St. Clair County, and not being willing to wait for St. Clair County to make St. Louis County ridership and St. Louis City ridership a priority.
I agree with that.
Thank you, Greg, very much for the phone call.
So, was that Greg from Baldwin?
That was Greg from
Tom
Baldwin.
from Waterloo is up next.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Right.
I was just kind of curious about something. I seem to recall hearing that to be a St. Louis City employee, you had to live in the city, inside the city limits. Is that correct?
There's
for a long
residency
time.
has been debated. I'm not sure where it is for all employees. I know there's some exceptions made now, but yeah, there has been residency.
Well, then if they use county police in the city of St. Louis, are they going to make them move into the city limits?
No. And right now, I think new hires from the police, if I'm not mistaken, recruits were exempted themselves from the residency. So the short answer is no. Nor should they.
Oh, okay. Because I was just thinking that might be one reason why they have so much trouble.
It has
been.
It's a lot of controversy, and I pointed out last week. I think that it's a different dynamic of a city at 300,000 than it was when it was 850.
For sure.
But thanks for calling. But no, they're not going to. And I happen to think it's a good thing, but we'll see.
Thank you, Tom.
Well,
thank you.
Did you have another point? Sorry about that.
No, I just said I hope they figure something out because I live over in Illinois and I'm kind of reluctant to spend much time in St. Louis anymore unless I'm kind of in the car.
I hate to hear that because we work in the city and spend a lot of time in the city, and I live in the county, work in the city, I've lived in the city before. And I think that, I hope people realize that we have a lot of problems, but if you're coming downtown, if you're coming to the west, most places, well, and not just the ball game, the Grand Center area where we are, I think nothing's 100%, but I think that the city's getting a bit of a bad rap on this personally.
I totally agree.
I hope you reconsider that. But thank you though for the call.
Thanks, Tom. Your opinions are important. Our neighbors in the Metro East. Let's go to Bill in Rock Hill, first-time caller. Hi, Bill. Welcome to Donnybrook. Your turn.
Good evening. Concerning the Metrolink security, first of all, I'm on that train 5 days a week most of the time, and I've experienced such things. There was a couple one night that decided to have a domestic dispute right in the seat behind me. There was another night when a group of young men got on the train, decided that they could not peaceably come to agreement, and proceeded to have a fight right on the articulation between the two cars, and one poor security guard had to handle the situation by himself. I think they desperately need to do something about security. I'm at the point where I don't care what they do. I don't care if they bring in county officers or if they, here's a novel idea, maybe, because some of the other callers were complaining about reassigning county officers to city work. Maybe it's time to give Metro their own police force. The Chicago Transit Authority and the various transit authorities in New York have their own police force.
Port Authority.
If, people are opposed to the county policing within the city, then maybe give Metro its own police force. But I know some of the other police forces are opposed to that they have said no, they don't want Metro to have their own police force, but then they don't want to do it themselves. So, come to some kind of conclusion here. And with regards to why people don't want to be cops in the city, I think one of my best friends, and Ray, you met him one year at Donnybrook, is a retired St. Louis police officer, and basically, you're a cop in the city, you got a target on you, but that target wasn't put there by the criminals, it was put there by the politicians. The moment anything goes wrong in the city, they want to take it out on you, and I think that's why a lot of people don't want to be city cops. They don't want to have a target on their back that was put there by the politicians.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it, Bill. And as far as the security, you know as much as anybody, I think, on this subject. And I think that one of the big criticisms of that study I keep talking about was what they found an alarming failure of the different jurisdictions and Metrolink by state Metrolink to communicate, and that they needed better teamwork. I personally do not like the idea of a transit agency of this size having its own police force. I think if you have a designated police force that reports to the professionals, be it the city, the county, St. Clair, or one of them or all of them, it's fine. But I do think police work should be the province of police. But we appreciate the call, and Bill certainly is as much of an expert
knows
on
the topic very well.
Train
Thank
travel.
you.
Let's go to Ken from St. Louis. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, guys. How are you tonight? I just wanted to ask you a question. They were talking a little bit earlier about the whistleblowers, and is this going to change the system? I guess of government. If you see something wrong, you're going to identify it. I just can't believe it's going to work just based on what I've seen in the city. When Channel 4 did an in-depth story on the whistleblowers at Slate, and it took the mayor 6-7 months to act on it when they were reporting that people inside the agency were saying there's some bad stuff going on here, and it was brought to her attention. It was brought to a lot of people's attention. Nothing really moved on, and I just think there's just the fear still of you're going to be protected, maybe, but maybe not. And in today's day and age, you're going to risk your job and your income, your way of life, because you want to report something bad going on. I just don't know if it's going to work.
Well, Sarah made a good point. You got to try something. I mean, I don't disagree. I don't think it's going to be transformational. Ken, are you still there? I don't think it's transformational. But what if as I say, I've been critical of Dr. Page on some issues and not on others. I don't know how you criticize him for trying. I mean, in other words, I don't.
Oh no,
there's got to be. And I'm not saying you are, but I mean, I think I tend to agree with you that in general, the state of our politics, be it in the city, the county, or anybody else, the cities or county, is such that nothing's going to work all the time to make government.
Well, and I'm concerned about just how do you ensure that everyone is on the same page about what what is considered inappropriate behavior, what is considered actionable behavior on the part of a superior or a colleague. We don't agree on anything today, and this sort of cancel culture where if people find out that there's one violation of anything and you're voted off the island, that part of it makes me nervous. We are very entitled today. Everybody is entitled to have everything their way, and that's not the kind of county government or city government I think is going to be very efficient.
Well, I think a lot of it's in the details. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, I think we have such strict rules on something like sexual harassment where it's totally outlined for you. You can read it. It's in black and white. If you cross the line, you're gone. You cannot do this. You cannot say this. And yet there are actions within an office or within government where it's still the good old boys network, to just to coin a phrase, where, hey, this is the way it's been for forever. And, hey, just get along with it. Move along. Here we go.
What I think the county executive's trying to do, which I commend, is take a step forward. Your concern, Wendy, is valid, but that goes to the implementation of it and the due process. If someone is accused, what he's saying, and I think he's right to say so, is that, you know, it's no longer okay to, if you see misconduct,
corruption,
to
with a capital
ignore it.
C, right?
And, you know, and whether that results in people being falsely accused or mistreated remains to be seen. But I do think that it's a step in the right direction to say it's not okay that if you see somebody stealing money that you just, well, not my problem, I didn't do it. So I think that's kind of what
I think it's a great.
I think it's a good first step.
Everybody in government.
I think it's a good
everybody
first
in
step.
government's got to go along. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much. And
Ken.
I've said the same thing. It's a good first step, but let's not pretend that government isn't government and that it's still going to be a place where there's influence.
But sunlight, disinfectant.
Right.
I think that
Right.
I'll give Steve Stenger that.
Okay.
He's at least. I think we are a little more woke than we were before.
Let's go to the
thanks again.
Let's go back to the Twitterverse. To career site. I think it is naive to think that empowering everyone to anonymously report on their boss and colleagues is a good idea. You encourage personal vendettas and create a bad environment. Well, that's the other side of that. And thank you for that tweet. You can send them all to hashtag Donnybrook STL.
Let's go to Jean in Oakville. Hi, Jean. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Good evening. It was a great show as usual.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm calling about the library. I believe that when these taxes are passed, they should have sunset clauses. When they give them amount of money in perpetuity, for some reason, it gets spent not wisely. Mm-hmm. And I honestly believe that they only had a certain amount of money for a certain amount of years, they would spend it a lot differently.
That's an interesting point and a good one, I think, Gene, in this case.
Yeah.
Really interesting point.
Thank you so much.
This was a bit of the tax increase was a bit open-ended.
Yes,
and I don't question the motives at all of the board, but I do think that it has become insular and insulated. And just the reaction to the people in Frontenac, who, whatever their background is, deserve, I think, more respect than they've received, is interesting. Interesting call. Let's go to Dave from Defiance. Hi, Dave.
Good evening, Wendy and Ray. Thanks for taking my call.
Hi, Dave. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment about the county police officers, are they searching for volunteers to go downtown to help the city police, or are they going to force someone who might be used to a little bit easier job out in the county compared to a war zone in the city?
Can I push back against that? I don't think that the city, there's this narrative that there's this giant contrast between police work in the county, which has plenty of danger and plenty of serious crime. I don't know whether it's like, the county's just like,
Officer Langsdorff was killed in the county.
I was just going to say, the county police are risking their lives every day with violent criminals. There's plenty of violent crime in St. Louis County, and there's plenty of parts of St. Louis City, including parts of North St. Louis as well as South St. Louis, that are relatively safe.
But his point is the body count is higher in a concentrated area.
I'm sorry, I mean, but it's
Dave.
not fair to just assume that there's this giant contrast in what a police officer does in the city and the county.
Right.
And if there's any officers out there, I'd love to hear from them. But I'm sorry, Dave, I didn't mean it. But
and there's
not that big a difference in the work.
We were just speculating, Dave, that they would probably ask for volunteers first.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
What I was getting at was I didn't know if they were going to force someone to go down there.
We don't know what they're.
Yeah.
That would be up to Chief Belmar and his staff.
And I can't imagine
others,
that scenario.
It's a good question, Dave. I mean, we don't know what the chief or the department, the police board are going to decide in terms of how to fulfill that goal. But it's a good question, and we appreciate your call.
Thanks for watching, Dave.
I think we probably have time for one more caller, Ken from Woodson Terrace.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, Good evening.
Good evening.
My point is that the Metrolink is made for low-income people to use to commute throughout St. Louis. I don't care what police force we have to use to secure that. We should make this secure.
Amen.
Okay. It's also for those
everybody.
Of us, for everybody. I
Yeah.
mean, to do all kinds of things. And I wish it went more places.
You see all socioeconomic groups during a Cardinal home game. So, but Ken, we thank you for
Thank
calling.
you for the call. I want to thank all of you for the calls. Hopefully it'll cool off out there. And go Cardinals. And we'll see you next Thursday night.
Have a great
Donnie
weekend.
Bash.
Donnie Bash.
At the Sheldon.